$73 an ounce, that was the price of silver this morning. It was historic. It was a victory lap. It was the moment every silver stacker had been waiting for. And then, in less than 4 hours, nearly $15 of value just vanished, gone, vaporized into thin air. If you are looking at your portfolio right now, you aren't looking at a correction. You are looking at a crime scene. This wasn't bad luck. This was a hit job. You need to understand something very clearly right now. Markets do not move like this naturally. A $15 drop in a single afternoon isn't panic selling. It isn't investors suddenly deciding they hate money. This was a coordinated mechanical destruction of the greatest rally in silver's history. Someone pulled the kill switch. And if you want to know who is holding the smoking gun, you are in the right place. The mainstream news will tell you this is just volatility. They will lie to you. We are going to show you the truth. So make sure you are subscribed because nobody else is going to break this down the way we are about to. Let's look at the timeline because the timing tells you everything. Tuesday, January 27th, 2026. The charts looked perfect. Silver broke through psychological barriers that experts said were impossible. The bulls were celebrating. The people who have been screaming about manipulation for decades finally felt vindicated. It felt like the finish line, but it was actually a trapdoor. By early afternoon, the floor fell out. Silver cratered. It dropped 55% in a single session. If you bought at the top thinking this was the breakout, you are underwater. If you were using leverage, you were annihilated. But here is the secret. This crash didn't happen because silver became less valuable. The industrial demand is still there. The solar panels still need to be built. The shortage is still real. So why did the price collapse? Because a specific group of people decided it had to. I'm not talking about retail traders on Reddit. I'm talking about the giants, the institutions that control the paper market, the exchange that sets the rules, the banks that were losing billions of dollars every time the price ticked up. They were trapped. They were bleeding cash, so they used their ultimate weapon to stop the bleeding. We need to talk about this weapon. It sounds boring. It sounds like technical homework. It is called a margin hike. But don't let the boring name fool you. In the financial world, a margin hike is a weapon of mass destruction. It is a nuclear option. And today they pushed the red button. To understand how they stole $15 from you in 4 hours, you have to understand how the game is played. Imagine you want to buy a house. You don't usually pay $500,000 in cash, right? You put down a down payment, maybe $20,000. That down payment lets you control the whole house. That is called leverage. The silver market works the same way. Traders on the COMEX, the main U.S. exchange, don't pay full price for silver contracts. They put down a deposit. This deposit is called margin. It allows traders to make massive bets with a small amount of cash. It's like driving a race car while only paying for the steering wheel. It makes the market liquid. It makes the market fast. But there is a catch, a dangerous hidden catch. The casino owner, in this case the CME Group, can change the rules in the middle of the game. Imagine if you bought that house and the bank suddenly called you and said, hey, that $20,000 down payment isn't enough anymore. We need another $100,000 and we need it in the next 10 minutes or we are taking the house back. That is exactly what a margin hike is. The exchange raises the cash requirement to hold a position, and they did this precisely when the price was skyrocketing. They forced every single trader to make a choice, deposit millions of dollars in cash immediately or sell everything at any price. On January 7th, 2026, the hammer dropped. The CME Group didn't just tweak the rules, they rewrote them. They announced a massive 47% increase in margin requirements. Let's break down what that actually means for your wallet. Before this announcement, to hold one silver contract, you needed $22,000 in your account. Suddenly, overnight, they demanded $32,500. That is an extra $10,500 per contract, and they wanted that money immediately. Now imagine you are a big hedge fund. You are holding 100 contracts. You just got a phone call telling you to wire over $1 million right now or lose everything. Imagine you are a regular guy. You scrape together enough cash for 10 contracts. Suddenly your broker is demanding $100,000 you simply do not have. So what happens next? You fold. You have to. You sell your position instantly. You don't sell because you think silver is crashing. You don't sell because you want to. You sell because the casino changed the rules while the dice were still in the air. You were forced out. This is the kill switch. This is how you stop a runaway train without firing a single shot. You just make it too expensive for the passengers to stay on board. And make no mistake, the timing was perfect. It was surgical. Silver had just crossed $110. The momentum was unstoppable. The big banks betting against silver were getting squeezed. The lease rates, which are just a fancy way of measuring how hard it is to find real metal, were spiking to 8%. That is a panic signal. It means there is no silver left in the vaults. The exchange saw this coming. They knew if silver broke past 120 or 150, the entire paper scheme would explode. The banks that are short silver would face losses so big they might not survive. So they protected the house. They raised margins. They forced everyone to sell. They took a historic rally and turned it into a bloodbath. It feels hopeless, doesn't it? It feels like the game is rigged and you can never win. But there is a crack in their armor. There is a fatal flaw in this strategy that they are desperate for you to ignore. I am going to show you exactly what that flaw is in just a minute, and it changes everything about this crash. But first, you have to realize this isn't the first time they have robbed you. This is a pattern. Go back to 1980. Silver was flying toward $50. What happened? The exchange changed the rules. They restricted new buyers. The Hunt brothers, who were buying everything in sight, got wiped out. The price collapsed. Fast forward to 2011. Silver touches $49 again. It is ready to break records. What does the CME do? They raised margins 5 times in 8 days. 5 times. They didn't stop until the price was crushed back down to $26. And now, here we are in 2026. Same story. Silver breaks out. Margins go up. Price goes down. This isn't a free market. It is a controlled demolition. And we know who the architects are. We don't have to guess. Look at JP Morgan. This is a bank that paid a $920 million fine in 2020 for manipulating precious metals. That is nearly $1 billion. They admitted to spoofing. That means placing fake orders to trick other traders. They admitted to rigging the game. Today, that same bank is one of the biggest players in the market. They hold massive piles of physical silver, and they bet against the price with paper contracts. So when you see a margin hike land exactly when the banks are in trouble, you don't need a detective to figure out what happened. This wasn't volatility. This was a rescue mission for the banks. They succeeded. They crashed the chart. But here's the thing. They cannot control. They can manipulate a spreadsheet. They can change the rules on a computer screen. But they cannot print silver bars. They cannot mine metal out of thin air. You cannot key in a code and make an ounce of silver appear in a vault. And that is where the real story begins. While the paper price on your screen is plummeting, something totally different is happening in the real world. The gap between the fake price and the real price is blowing out. Let me give you a number that is going to shock you. Here's the number that exposes the lie. While the computer screens in New York screamed that silver had crashed to $111, real people in the real world were handing over cash at $130 an ounce. Think about that for a second. The official price says the market is crashing. But if you actually try to buy a bar of silver in Japan, you are paying a $20 premium over that price. In South Korea, it is trading at $97. Even here in the United States, dealers are laughing at the spot price. The spread between the paper price and the physical price, the price you pay to actually hold the metal in your hand, has blown out. It is wider than we have ever seen. This is what we call the Great Divorce. The paper market and the physical market are no longer speaking to each other. They are living in two completely different realities. On one side, you have bankers trading digital promises. On the other side, you have a starving market fighting over scraps of real metal. The reason for this split is actually very simple. You can print infinite paper contracts. You can create 1 million synthetic ounces of silver with a keyboard and a mouse. It takes zero energy. It costs $0. But you cannot print a silver coin. You have to find it. You have to dig it out of the ground. You have to melt it. You have to refine it. That takes time. That takes fuel. That takes real work. And right now, the physical market is screaming shortage. Look at the COMEX inventories. This is the amount of silver sitting in the vaults, registered and ready to be delivered to people like you. Since 2020, that stockpile has plummeted by over 70%. It is being drained. It is vanishing. We are talking about hundreds of millions of ounces that used to be there, which are now gone. In London, the other banking capital of the world, the vaults are emptying even faster. In a single week, 45 million ounces were pulled out. That is 26% of their entire inventory, gone in 7 days. When you see metal leaving the vaults that fast, it tells you one thing. People are scared. They don't trust the paper promises anymore. They want the real thing. And when everyone runs for the exit at the same time, the price is supposed to skyrocket. That is the law of supply and demand. But the paper market is breaking the law. They are using margin hikes to suppress the price, even while the vaults run dry. But there is a new player on the board, a player that is much bigger than a hedge fund. And this player is about to change the rules of the game forever. You might be wondering why the supply is vanishing so fast. It's not just investors. It is a superpower making a strategic move to corner the market. On January 1st, 2026, China dropped a bombshell. They implemented the most aggressive export controls we have seen in modern history. They reclassified silver. It is no longer just a commodity to them. It is now a strategic dual-use metal. That is fancy government speak for critical weapon material. It means they now treat silver the same way they treat uranium or missile components. You cannot move silver out of China without a permission slip from the government. And guess what? They aren't handing out many permission slips. Only 44 companies in the entire country are allowed to export it. Why does this matter to you? Because China is the bottleneck. They refine more than half of the world's silver. They sit between the mines in South America and the factories in the West. When China turns off the tap, the water stops flowing, and the tap is turning off. In Shanghai, the price of physical silver is trading $8 higher than in London. That is a massive gap. Chinese buyers are panic buying. They know the doors are closing. They are hoarding every ounce they can find. This isn't just about money anymore. This is geopolitical chess. Silver is in everything. It is in the solar panels on your roof. It is in the battery of your electric car. It is in the microchips inside your phone. It is in the guidance systems of modern missiles. If you control the silver, you control the technology. You control the future. So while the banks in New York are playing games with paper charts to crash the price, the governments of the world are waking up to a terrifying reality. They are realizing that without silver, they can't build green energy grids. They can't build data centers for AI. They can't build weapons. And this brings us to the most critical question of all. If the vaults are empty, and if China is hoarding the supply, and if the world is desperate for metal, why is the price crashing? The answer is simple: desperation. The paper market is still in control, but its grip is slipping. Every time they hike margins, every time they force a crash, it is a sign of weakness. It proves they are terrified, because the more they manipulate the price down, the faster the physical metal disappears. They are digging their own grave. And when the very last bar of silver leaves the vault, the game ends. The COMEX will be forced to do something they have never done before. They will have to declare a cash settlement. That means they will admit they don't have the silver, and they will just pay you back in paper dollars. That is the moment the system breaks. That is the moment the price goes to infinity. But to know when that moment is coming, you have to look at the one chart they don't want you to see. When the last bar is gone, the paper price becomes a fiction. It becomes a number that nobody respects. We aren't there yet, but we are getting dangerously close. And the brutal attack we saw today, that is proof that the people running this system are scared. They know the end is coming. But let's talk about the bodies on the floor, because you cannot raise margins by 47% overnight without casualties. You cannot crash the price by $14 in 4 hours without wiping people out. Someone has to pay the bill. And in this case, the people who paid were the traders who actually believed the market was fair. The most dramatic example comes from India. In the city of Rajkot, a major hub for the silver trade, the devastation was total. 44 silver trading firms declared insolvency in the wake of the crash. 44 businesses gone, just like that. These firms had liabilities of $425 million. That is nearly $500 million in losses from a single day. These weren't kids in their basement gambling on an app. These were established trading houses. They had been in business for years, but they made one fatal mistake. They held paper. They were playing the futures game. They were using leverage. And when the CME pulled the kill switch, they got the call. Pay us millions right now, or we sell everything. They couldn't pay. They were liquidated. Here's the cruelest part of the joke. While these firms were going bankrupt, the price of real silver in India was exploding. On the physical market, silver hit a lifetime high of over $113 per ounce. The physical market was screaming, "Buy, we need more." But the paper traders were getting slaughtered because the rules of the casino changed. They had the right idea. They knew silver was valuable. They just picked the wrong vehicle to drive, and it drove them off a cliff. This bankruptcy wave in India is just a preview. It is a microcosm of what is happening all over the world. If you are playing the paper game, if you are using leverage, you are standing on a trapdoor. And the guy with his hand on the lever hates you. But it's not just the little guys getting hurt. The big banks are bleeding too. In fact, that is exactly why this crash happened. Banks that are betting against silver have been losing money hand over fist. As the price climbed in 2025, they were hemorrhaging cash. Look at the data. As of December, commercial banks were net short 212 million ounces of silver. That means they were betting that 200 million ounces of silver would go down in value. At $100 an ounce, that is a $21 billion bet. Every time silver goes up by just $1, these banks lose $212 million. When did silver jump $37? That is an $8 billion loss. So ask yourself the question, who has the motive? Who benefits when the price crashes? The banks, the shorts, the institutions that run the exchange. They needed relief. They were drowning. They needed to crash the price so they could buy back their positions cheaper. They needed to reset the board before their losses became so big that they went bankrupt. So they attacked. Not because silver is worthless, but because they needed to survive. But here's the thing they didn't account for. It is the one flaw in their plan. Every time they manipulate the price down, they create a massive sale for physical buyers. Every time they smash the paper price, the gap between paper and physical gets wider. And every time that gap widens, more people wake up. More people realize the paper market is a scam. This is a war of attrition. The banks can win battles. They can crash the chart for a day or a week. But they are losing the war. Why? Because they cannot print silver. If you are watching this video and you have physical silver in your safe, you need to understand your position. You are winning. You are not holding a paper promise. You are not waiting for a margin call. You are holding an asset that cannot be deleted by a computer glitch. It cannot be rehypothecated. It cannot be stolen by a rule change at the exchange. The people who got wiped out today were playing the paper game. The people who will survive are the ones holding the metal. When the dust settles, when the paper market finally snaps, the physical holders are the ones who will be left standing. The paper holders, they will get a cash settlement in worthless dollars from a bankrupt exchange. So where do we go from here? The crash happened. The damage is done. But what happens tomorrow? What happens next week? We are looking at 3 specific events that are about to trigger the next phase of this crisis. And if you aren't prepared for number 2, you might miss the biggest opportunity of the decade. If you are sitting there holding silver, or if you are thinking about buying your first coin, you need to understand how this movie ends. You need to know what happens when the paper pricing system finally collapses under its own weight, because make no mistake, it is collapsing. There are 3 ways this plays out, 3 scenarios. One of them is already starting to happen. Scenario 1, the white flag. In this version, the banks admit defeat. They realize they can't stop the buying. They stop manipulating the price and let it rise to where it actually belongs. We could see silver jump to $150, maybe $200 an ounce. The paper price catches up to the real world. This is the dream scenario. It's the happy ending for everyone holding silver. But look at what happened today. Look at the margin hikes. Does that look like a bank that is ready to surrender? No. They are still fighting. So don't count on this one just yet. Scenario 2, the permanent split. This is what I call the Venezuela scenario. Imagine a country where the government says a loaf of bread costs $1. That is the official price. But when you go to the store, the shelves are empty. If you actually want bread, you have to go to the black market, and there it costs $50. This is where we are heading. We end up with 2 separate markets. The COMEX continues to trade paper contracts at a fake low price, but nobody cares. Because if you want real metal, you have to pay the real price, which is much, much higher. In this world, the paper price becomes a ghost. It exists on a screen, but it doesn't mean anything. Trust evaporates. If you are holding physical silver, you win because you hold the real asset. If you are holding a paper contract, you lose because you get paid out in cash at the fake price. Scenario 3, the nightmare. This is the one the banks are terrified of. It is called force majeure. That is a fancy legal term for we broke it. In this scenario, so many people stand up and demand delivery of their silver that the vaults run completely dry. The COMEX has to call a press conference and say, we cannot fulfill our contracts. We don't have the metal. If you have a contract that promises you 5,000 ounces of silver, they tear it up. They give you a check for cash instead. Think about that. You bought silver to protect yourself from the dollar crashing. And when the system breaks, they force you to take dollars. If this happens, the entire pricing system dies instantly. Because if the exchange can't deliver the product, their price is worthless. The price of silver on the street would explode to infinity because there would be zero supply. We almost saw this happen before. Back in March 2020, during the panic, the gold market nearly broke. They came within days of declaring force majeure. They barely survived. And the attack we saw today, the margin hikes, the forced selling, these are acts of desperation to stop scenario 3 from happening. The paper market is fighting for its life. They are using every dirty trick in the book to stay in control. But every time they pull the kill switch, they shoot themselves in the foot. Think about it. If you are a buyer in China and you see the New York exchange crash the price by $14 in 4 hours just to save a few banks, do you trust that price? No. You realize it is a rigged game. You stop looking at the screen. You just buy the physical metal. That is why the physical market is winning. People are building their own pricing networks. They are ignoring the noise from New York. So, for those of you holding physical silver, this is why you hold. You aren't holding because you think the paper chart is going to go up in a straight line. You are holding because the paper market is dying. And when it finally flatlines, the physical market is the only thing left. In that world, you don't just have money, you have power, you have the only asset that matters, but knowing the end game isn't enough. You need to know what to do tomorrow. Because there is a trap being set for retail investors right now. And if you aren't careful, you could lose your position just before the real explosion happens. Let's bring this home. Here is exactly what you need to do with this information. Understanding what just happened is useless if it doesn't change what you do next. Information is only power if you act on it. So, let's talk about your battle plan. Here are the 5 rules you need to follow if you want to survive this crash and come out wealthier on the other side. Rule number 1, do not flinch. If you are holding physical silver right now, do not let a red number on a computer screen scare you out of a real asset. What you saw today was a paper attack. It was a magic trick. It was not a change in reality. The solar panels still need silver. The missiles still need silver. The mines are still empty. If you sell your real metal because a banker in New York changed a rule on a spreadsheet, you are letting them win. You are handing them your wealth for cheap. They want you scared. They want you to panic. Don't give them the satisfaction. Rule number 2, this is a fire sale. When the paper price crashes but the physical demand is still high, that is not a crisis. That is a gift. That is a coupon code for the most undervalued asset on earth. The gap between the fake price and the real price is wider than it has ever been. That means you can buy silver at a discount. But, and this is critical, you must buy the metal. Do not buy an ETF. Do not buy a mining stock. Do not buy a pool account where they promise they have a bar with your name on it in a vault somewhere. If you can't hold it in your hand, you don't own it. Remember the 44 companies in India? They went bankrupt because they trusted the paper system. They bought contracts, not metal. Don't make that mistake. If you buy paper, you are walking into the same trap that destroyed them. You are trusting a rigged casino. Rule number 3, fix your timeline. I know you want the price to explode tomorrow. We all do. But you need to understand that this is a war of attrition. It might take months. It might take years. We don't know. The banks are desperate. They are fighting for their lives. They will use every dirty trick they have to keep the price down. But here's the good news. They are fighting a losing battle. They are fighting against physics. They are fighting against geology. You cannot print silver. You cannot cheat nature. Every day that passes, more silver gets used up by industry. Every day, the vaults get emptier. Time is your ally. Their clock is ticking. Yours isn't. Rule number 4, become bulletproof. Fear comes from not knowing. The only reason you get scared when the price drops is that you aren't looking at the data. So, do your homework. Don't just listen to me. Go look at the COMEX inventory reports. Look at the lease rates. Look at the premiums people are paying in China. The evidence is all public. It is hiding in plain sight. When you see the numbers with your own eyes, the fear disappears. You realize that the price crash is a lie. You realize that you are holding the winning hand, and the banks are just bluffing. Rule number 5, pick a side. If this breakdown helped you see the matrix, if you understand the game better now than you did 10 minutes ago, you need to make some noise. The algorithm hates this content. The mainstream financial news will never tell you this story. They will tell you silver crashed because of profit taking. They will lie to you. We are here to tell you the truth. The truth is that silver was attacked today because it was threatening to break the system, and it will be attacked again. So hit subscribe, smash the like button, drop a comment below that says "chill guy" so I know you are awake and paying attention. It helps us find more people who need to hear this. The manipulators showed their hand today. They showed us they are terrified. They proved they can control the paper price, but they cannot control the real world. Illusions do not last forever. Hold your mettle. Ignore the noise. Understand the game. But there is one final thing you need to be aware of. There is a specific signal we are watching for, a canary in the coal mine, that will tell us exactly when the paper market is about to officially die. And if you miss this signal, you might miss the exit. The attack is over. But the war is just starting. You know why the price crashed. You know the game is rigged. But there is one dangerous variable we haven't talked about yet, and it isn't the banks, it isn't the government, it is the clock. There is a specific date when the industrial supply of silver hits 0. Not 0 on a spreadsheet, 0 in the real world. We found the data that calculates exactly when the lights go out for the manufacturing sector. It connects the Chinese export ban to the US vault depletion in a way nobody is talking about. If you think a $15 crash is crazy, wait until you see what happens on day 0. You need to see the timeline before you buy another ounce. I broke down the entire calculation in this video right here. Click it. It explains everything. I'll see you there.